Our focus is environmental education and is really people exactly like you, right? And it's not, you know, you're going to get a great foundation out of Auburn or whatever universities, right? But what we've learned, me and my friends have learned over the years, is usually when you leave university, there are still gaps. And, you know, if you want to do this kind of work, you have to be a lifelong learner. These two will tell you that. It's so complex. So like, I don't want to be an environmentalist, right? I have no interest. I'd rather be doing art or studying monkeys, you know, something like that. But fighting to preserve something that should never be endangered in the first place, I don't want to do that. But if you're going to do it, there's some tricks. So I'm going to tell you a story first. Operation Cat Drop. So this is a true story. 1950s, Indonesia, island of Borneo, malaria is taking off, really bad. People are suffering, dying, kids, it's bad. So the World Health Organization goes, there's this great new product called DDT. Let's spray the hell out of it. And it works. The mosquitoes die, malaria cases drop, cool, right? But then everybody's roofs start collapsing because they had thatched roofs, and the DDT also killed this parasitic wasp that kept in check this type of caterpillar that eats thatch. So now everybody's roofs collapse. So now the Indonesian government has to buy everybody new roofs, which they did, but those are steel roofs. So people who would live their whole lives for generations under a thatch roof now live under a steel roof, and nobody could sleep because it's loud when tropical rain is pounding on your roof. Okay, then the geckos are eating all these dead bugs and dead mosquitoes, and they're bioaccumulating and bioconcentrating the DDT, right? Then the cats eat the dead geckos and the live geckos. And now the cat population all dies all across Borneo. And subsequent to that, rats explode across Borneo, and now there's bubonic plague and typhus epidemics breaking out. So the WHO hires RAF Singapore. They empty out all the pounds, the animal shelters of cats, and they parachute cats into the Borneo jungle to try to solve the problem that was started by spraying for malaria with DDT, right? So environmental problems are very complex. It's one of the cool things about it is all this interdisciplinary, it's kind of cool, interesting detective work, right? But, so here's another one. When I started at Berkeley, at school, I had this professor, and the Australian government in the 70s, kind of at the end of the Green Revolution, decided they wanted to go into tree farming, you know, growing it like a wheat crop or a corn crop. And for some reason they picked Monterey pine, which is this little pine tree that grows on the California coast. You've seen it. Where's our person from Northern California? Where'd she go? Right. You've seen it. And we don't use it. It's not a merchantable tree in California, but for some reason they decided that's the one we're going to grow. And they cultivated it with forestry at Berkeley, and they took trees there and they planted it. Looked good, right? A lot of money, a lot of political capital, people's reputations, dendrologists and silviculturists, sorry. And okay. They get the big shipment of trees, they ship it to Australia, they plant them, and they won't grow. The test trees grew, everything worked. So they test and test and test, and they find out chlorosis. These trees aren't getting nitrogen. And they can't figure out why. They have pathologists and all these people can't figure it out. So they're about this close to doing this massive nitrogen fertilization campaign, which they know probably won't work, because the soil's already got nitrogen. They don't know why the plants don't. But they're about to go for it, and they talked to this professor of mine named Everett Schlinger. Ev Schlinger. He was a plant pathologist and an entomologist. And he's like, wait, before you do that, what did you do to these plants? Well, what they did was the big shipment, when it went, got a different treatment at customs. And it got nuked with, I think, methylene bromide, because it was over a certain volume, so it had to be treated for safe export and import, right? And Monterey pine can't live without this mycorrhizal fungus that invades its roots, and basically Monterey pine doesn't produce root hairs. It lives with this fungus, and without that fungus, no go. So Ev cultivates some of the spores, goes to Australia, flies around with a Piper Cub airplane and literally dumps cardboard boxes of this stuff over the plantation. Problem solved for like $9,000 instead of millions of dollars of nitrogen that probably would have ended up in rivers causing eutrophication and all kinds of follow-on problems. Here's an example. This isn't us, but here's a real-life example of how weird these little issues can be. See those trees right out there? So we have a creek here that's kind of isolated. And so we have sloths and we have white-faced capuchin monkeys. And there's another creek over there. And they're connected. If you're a sloth or a monkey, there's 2 trees out there. And I almost cut those trees down to make a view. And if I had, the sloth couldn't make it to that creek. I didn't know, right? But then we see them traveling, right? But so these are wildlife bridges in Costa Rica, and sometimes just one rope can open up an enormous amount of habitat to an animal. So anyway, my point with all this is if you don't analyze well, if you don't know what's going on out in the environment, it's hard to manage it right? It's a challenge. It's a cool challenge, but so here's the SDGs, right? Oh, here's another example, Lake Arnall. You guys are supposed to be talking about watersheds and reservoirs, right? Okay, so Guanacaste, this province, was part of Nicaragua, was the last part to become part of Costa Rica. It's always been the poorest province of Costa Rica. And when you get out that way, it's dry, and in the summer it looks almost like a desert sometimes. So, in 1971 or something, this man named Miguel Dengo, who was an engineer trained in Belgium, wrote, now some of this might be mythology, okay, but this is the story. He rides up on one of those hills and he looks down the Arnall Valley, no lake. There was historically a little dinky bit of a lake down at the other end, but not really. At the far end is the volcano that's newly started erupting, 1968. And he goes, well, we need water and electricity, but we need it out there. So you guys just drove across the dam, right? Well, if you ever go back there, you notice there's no power station. There's no cables leading. You know, normally at the dam they produce the electricity. There's nothing there. And that's because Miguel Dengo, rode up there and he had the idea, let's build a dam next to a newly active volcano. Then we'll go, and it's right over there, you can see it. We're going to dig 2 huge tunnels under the mountains, actually crossing the Continental Divide. This water should be going to the Caribbean in the Atlantic, but he's diverted it to the Pacific coast. It goes through under the mountains, out towards Cañas, drops down, and there's a power station there and water there. So very innovative idea, right? He later, when the lake was filling, was out on the lake in a boat and got sucked into the intake and killed by his own invention. Yeah, but anyway, integrative, interdisciplinary problem solving is a big part of this kind of work, and if you're going to have these careers. So anyway, what we are interested in here is trying to help you guys be more successful in your careers, right? If you've never seen about Ikigai, but the idea is to find what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at. But how do you know, right? How do you really know? What are you really good at? Do you even know? You might know. So this is Sir Ken Robinson. So Sir Ken had the #1 TED Talk of all time. If you've never seen it, it's great. It's called Do Schools Kill Creativity? Right? And he was really into changing how education works, and so am I. And so are most of my friends, right? So the question is, what are you good at? What are you good at? What do you think you're good at? Pick one thing, anything.
Physics.
Physics, cool, all right. We got physics. What are you bad at? What are you bad at?
English.
English, okay. Is there something you just don't know whether you're good or bad at, but you're curious about?
Golf.
Golf, that's a good one. I used to play frisbee golf. Right? Oh, and by the way, what's the best way how do you learn best? Do you know? Has anybody ever asked you, how do you learn?
Reading and discussion.
Read and discuss, cool. Read and disc. Okay. What are you good at?
Walking.
Walking? That's a good one. Well, don't laugh. People who walk a lot live a lot. What are you bad at?
Listening.
Listening? You're listening to me. I must be doing something right here. Okay. Don't know? If you don't know, you don't know. We can leave this one blank if you don't have it. Huh?
I'll leave it blank.
Okay. How do you learn best? Viz. This is good. You know, most people I ask, I guess, how do you learn? Most people go, I don't know. What about you? What are you good at?
Science.
Science. What kind of science?
Health science.
Health? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Big connection between environment and health. I don't think there's a division. I don't think you can even make that separation at all. What are you bad at?
Spelling.
Don't know? Curious about? Something you wish you knew whether you were good or bad at?
No.
All right. How do you learn best?
Hands-on.
Nice. See, I went to all these big universities, Berkeley and Humboldt, and I have no degrees. I don't do well in academia, in traditional academia. I can. I'll go, my transcript is A, F, C, A, F, incomplete. Ridiculous. How about you? What's something you're good at?
Beekeeping.
Ooh, we got a little bee box somewhere. Oh, it's out there. We have the stingless bees that live here. Mariolas. They're very cool. What are you bad at?
Statistics.
Stats. I hate stats. Don't know? How do you learn?
Hands-on.
Okay, we'll just do some dittos there. Who haven't bugged you yet?
Sports.
What sport? Be more specific.
Water sports, wakeboarding, surfing, skateboarding.
You know, we have some of the best kite surfing and windsurfing in the world is right there in that lake.
It's on
Okay.
the list to try. It's just very expensive.
Yeah. Bad at?
Differential equations.
Is anybody good at that? Okay. Don't know? Something you're curious about?
Don't know.
Don't know you don't know. That's a good answer. And how do you learn best?
Hands-on.
Okay. All right. So my point with this is, how do you know what you're good at and how do you know you're not good at it? A lot of us are told, oh, you suck at this because, you know, like when you were 8, you were in a class and you were behind your other students, and maybe it was just because you weren't being taught the way you needed to be taught, right? And so you were told you suck at this, or you told yourself that. But the reality is, I'm 61 years old, the reality is that a lot of that is BS. You don't know. Maybe you weren't exposed to it in the right place. Maybe you never got it. Maybe you're a great ceramicist or welder. How would you ever know if you've never been exposed to it, right? So my point with all this is, ask yourself, am I really good? You might, like, there are things I think I'm good at, I'm not. Bad, I would put bookkeeping. I'm not bad at it. Actually, I did it a little bit, and I was really good at it. And I actually liked knowing that my books were in order. It felt really good. I didn't enjoy it, so I fell apart and didn't keep with it. But my point is, you're going to be taught stuff that's true about yourself, or you're going to tell yourself stuff that's true. Oh, I know I'm no good at this. I know I'm good at that. And there's a good chance you're incorrect, right? There's a very good chance you're incorrect. Most of us are, a lot. Professors, would you back me on that? True? Right. I mean, we've all heard it, right? So, and then also, at some point, a friend of mine from the Sir Ken Robinson Foundation knew I was doing this today. He said, be sure you tell them this. So thank you, Daniel Hernandez from Mexico City. He pointed out, there's probably things you're good at and that people appreciate about you. Maybe you don't appreciate it that much, but they appreciate it about you, right? Maybe you're good at, I don't know, baking eclairs, and everybody loves your eclairs. I don't know what it is, but pay attention to those. Those moments where somebody says to you, wow, I really, that thing you did, I really appreciate that. That was really cool. Pay attention to those when they come along, because there's probably a lesson in there for you. This is just some of our stuff going on. Okay, so 10 things my friends and I want you to know. These are people I've worked with, my friend Sam that these guys know. Now this is a sort of checklist of places that my friends and I over the decades and decades, this is hundreds of years of experience, not just from me, of people who have seen where environment and sustainability projects go to die. Okay, so this is the Trinity River in Northern California, and for years that was considered the best way to do erosion control on the riverbank, was to bury car bodies on the riverbank. It did not work. And now there's this, you got rusty car bodies in the rivers. This is actually a photo from Vietnam. I can't find one, but that's them spraying Agent Orange in Vietnam, right? 2,4-D, 2,4,5-T, polychlorinated bipheноls, extremely deadly. And one of the contaminants is dioxin, the most toxic chemical ever made by human beings. Sprayed it all over Vietnam. You probably heard a little bit about that. People died of cancer and came back, and the US government told them they were just lazy, that they weren't actually sick, okay? Did you know that it was sprayed extensively in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and California for years by the United States Forest Service? Yeah, and that was considered good practice because it would kill the broadleaf trees and not the pines and firs. The gymnosperms aren't affected by it as much. They are a little, right? So that was cool. I remember this, right? And actually a lot of the Environmental Protection Act comes from people suing about that. Women having miscarriages in watersheds in Western Oregon sued, and eventually the federal government had to do something about it, and the EPA Act was created by a woman I was lucky to get a course from at Berkeley named Jan Newton, was one of the lead attorneys. A lot of environmental history is legal history, by the way. Didn't happen by chance. Some politician didn't just suddenly get an eco-conscience. Some lawyer rammed it down their throat, maybe. Okay? So, 10 steps. We've already talked about this, analysis and problem solving. If your analysis of a problem is inaccurate, it's garbage in or garbage out, usually, like the Monterey pines and the cat drops, and me almost chopping down something that would have profoundly negatively affected the wildlife in my home, right? So, how do you think? How do you make decisions? So I'm not going to try to tell you this. I'm just pointing out things that I think you should consider moving forward, right? Creativity. The World Economic Forum. Oh, wait, let me back up. Look, this is from a study from the World Economic Forum. Highest priority for skills training. You guys want jobs? Highest priority isn't knowing about sustainability. It's analytical thinking. That's what employers, when you guys graduate, that's what they're going to be looking for. And the next, number 2, ability to promote creative thinking. Not your statistical, differential equations skills or your programming skills. Creativity and analytical thinking and communications. Those are the top 3 that employers are looking for. You guys have probably already heard a little bit about ecosystem services and payment for ecosystem services and ecosystem valuation. I remember when I first heard about this was they were trying to expand, I think it was Amboseli, one of the huge national parks in Central Africa, East Africa. And the argument was, well, wait, you want me to get rid of my cows so you can have another lion, right? My cows are worth $100 a piece. What's a lion worth? So somebody did some studies and figured out that a lion walking around out there in Kenya was worth like $1.1 million in tourist revenue. So it gave you a way to fight back against people who said, well, it's either good for the environment or good for business, which was never true, right? But it was a way to fight back. It gave us a tool. And that's cool, but I think there's ethical limitations to that. Does everything always have to have a dollar value on it? But you better understand, now you can't be expert in all these things, right? But you better understand payment for ecosystem services. Life cycle analysis is in every industry, whether it's computers or manufacturing, you gotta know about life cycle analysis. I think this might be the most important skill of the next century. Because if we're gonna create circular economies, you have to understand it. Corporate sustainability and economics. You know, you heard the triple bottom line, social, environmental, and economic benefits. Guess which one always wins? Economics, right? But it's good, so it's not, anyway, it's good to understand how corporations look at the environment. Project management, this is one probably everybody goes, huh? But if you know a little bit of project management language, it's much easier to work in interdisciplinary teams. And a project management certification is a good thing to get if it's at all of interest to you. But if you got to write a grant proposal for grad school even, project management skills and business plan writing and budgeting skills, yeah. You have a cool idea that's going to save the world, right? I got this great project. It's going to make such a difference in Costa Rica or wherever I'm from. One of the first 3 questions you're going to get asked when you're in front of a decision maker, how much does it cost? How's it going to be funded, right? So it's not very sexy, but it's really important. Understanding social justice and where to find leverage. So this is more policy. You're arguing with somebody about why we should do this. Have you ever seen this story? In Calcutta, many of the houses are literally that big. That's the whole house. 4 people, 5 people living in it. It's basically a room. And they have electricity, but they can't afford much. So it's dark in the day and bright at night. They use the electricity at night, but in the daytime it's pitch black in these little houses. And some dude came up with an idea to take a 2-liter Coke bottle, fill it with water, stick it in a piece of galvanized roofing, stick that through the roof, and then on a sunny day, it acts like a 40-watt light bulb. And now it's not dark anymore. And the guy makes them for $2 installed and has gotten rich off it. But the point is, sometimes your environmental project needs legs. You got to talk about humans. How does it solve health issues? Or, you know, that lady's kids now could study during the daytime, right? When before that, they couldn't. There's Sam's book. I personally think this is where the environmental movement goes to die. Most environmentalists suck at communicating. That's my opinion. It's just not, it's a gloomy subject, and it's terrifying, and climate change and biodiversity loss and nuclear power and right? But there are ways to tell the stories well. And if you have a knack for it, it's a great career. So here's an example. You know, you're trying to get people to understand tipping points and big problems. That's all the air on planet Earth. The complete atmosphere, if you put it in a ball on top of the Earth. And that's all the water. And the fresh water is that dot. Right? So how you communicate environmental things is a really important part of having a success. So anyway, we're just trying to point out some, you know, this is a lot to digest, but anyway, we're trying to point out ways that you can that things you could think about moving forward. And I personally believe you're going to have to be an entrepreneur. You're probably going to have to start your own business at some point, some portion of you. If you want to, there just aren't going to be the jobs there for you, but you can create them. And if you like that, it can be really cool, right? This is us. We have our career boot camps will be going again next year. I'm creating right now a little environmental analysis and decision-making class that'll be online. And for you guys, it's not ready yet, but if any of you want to take it, we'll get your email addresses and everything, and I'll announce it to you guys. But if you just respond with the name Auburn in it, you guys can get the class for free. I'm going to charge about $100 for it, but I'll give it to you guys for free if you just please give me some feedback and a testimonial about what you thought of it. But that's a little thing I want to do for you guys. Okay, my last story, and then I'll shut up. When I was at Berkeley, I was in the student organization. We did lots of organizing against social topics, apartheid, all kinds of stuff, clear-cut logging. And it was kind of cool, and it was also kind of a bummer a lot of the time. And one day, I don't know how he got there, but this man, Roberto Vargas, came and talked to our group. And he was a Latino community organizer in California. And back then, it was 1983 or something, Latino communities weren't as powerful then as they are now in California. They had the farm workers unions, but not a lot else. So he was doing really tough work. And he came and he gave us pointers on how to organize and how to stick it to the man kind of stuff, right? And then we left. And about 5 of us walked up across campus and sat down on the grass in front of the library. And he said something that has stuck with me through all these years. 40 years later, I still remember it perfectly. And my memory's not great. But he said, look, there's a lot to be scared about. There's a lot of serious issues. And frankly, we might not even make it as a species, right? But he said, the cool thing, though, is that there's opportunities for everybody to be a hero. Now, a hero doesn't have to be Martin Luther King or whoever. A hero might just be somebody who helps one person one day and pays it forward a little bit, right? But the point is, this is challenging stuff, and you guys are living in challenging times, and my generation has failed you, and I apologize for my role in that. But the truth is, there is opportunities for all of you to be heroes. And just the fact that you're here listening to me and doing what you're doing, in my opinion, you already are heroes, right? So thank you. Questions or comments? Yes.
Not kind of a random one. Do you have a project you're most proud of?
This. We built this, my wife and I built this, out of our own pockets. This moment right now. This is my chance to pay it forward a little bit. So I'm serious. I couldn't be happier than I am right now. Thanks to you guys. I owe it to you. Thank you for coming. Any other questions or comments? Please, discussion. Yes?
How'd you get started in it?
I was a kid, and we had this ranch in Northern California, way up in the boonies. My dad was a contractor, right? We built houses and stuff. But all around us was national forest. We were a little island in all this miles of Shasta Trinity National Forest. And the Forest Service was just clear-cutting it, thousands of acres, just devastating it, giving it away to timber companies for pennies on the dollar. And then 1964, there was a huge flood, and the rivers were all destroyed all across Northern California. They still haven't recovered. 60 years later, they're still not completely recovered. Might never recover. But it was just, my dad was just pissed, and he made a living off lumber. But that didn't mean he wanted to see whole miles of mountains raped and pillaged, So definitely everything came from my dad. My dad was a great guy. His name was Gene Greenleaf, and he just believed in making the world a better place as much as he could, right? So that's where it started. And then I was on a random field trip at Berkeley, And there was went to this thing called the Integral Urban House, which was like an early experiment in green building. And my guide was a volunteer from Conservation of Natural Resources at Berkeley. He's like, you should check out our department. And that's how I got into it. You guys have anything to add?
Well, no, I have a question for you. So with Ken, Sam, these others, how did you meet and sort of build your network to be able to sort of start an organization like
By
yours?
being nosy, by talking too much, by being a pain in the butt, which I'm working on. What am I not good at? I get this a long list. It's just time too. I've been at it a long time now, and been lucky. You know, like when I was a student at Berkeley, I had great teachers like Fritjof Capra and Amory Lovins, and John Holdren, and Carolyn Merchant, and Miguel Altieri. I was just lucky, and I didn't really appreciate it. That's a great question. If you think about interdisciplinary problem solving, which I guess is my theme here today, the human component of that is inextricable, right? So if I had a suggestion, it would be stay in touch with the other people in this room, because 10 years from now, you might have a problem that she knows the solution to. You know? Networking and communication. When I was young, environmentalism was still primarily wealthy white men, upper middle class. It wasn't very well integrated. The gender thing is gone now, thank God. But it wasn't cool, you know, and it was kind of cliquish, and that a lot has changed. And the biggest change, I think, is that it's harder for people to say, if it's good for the environment, it's bad for business. Thank God, because that was a fact when I was a kid. It wasn't a fact, but it was portrayed as one. So, but I think that having the right network, you know, I mean, they're going to give you a good foundation. But my whole point of all this is, okay, now you graduated, keep assessing yourself. So just because you think you know something about yourself, you're guessing, right? Take the time to ask yourself. Maybe somebody said something really mean to you sometime, and you internalize that crap. I don't know you. But one thing I do want to say is take my email and our contact, because we are here to support you. I don't care if it's 10 years from now, you send me an email, I will respond to you. Right? We will respond to you. How about you? I'd love to hear something from you.
Well, no, this was really great. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect from today's presentation, so I think it was great information. So this whole trip is really focused on protected area management. So we've been visiting public protected areas like national parks, private protected areas. We are in Bree, Indigenous Reserve. Just looking at different forms of management. So Kawita National Park, but there's, you know, kind of a local organization that helps. I don't know if you can comment in this area about protected area management, whether you are part of that or just giving some other case studies, what has worked, what hasn't, challenges that you've seen.
I have been involved with it a little more in California, but here, not much. And I forgot to acknowledge that we're on Mileku ground here. And in fact, when we were building this building, we dug up a few pottery shards from right underneath where you guys are sitting right now. So this is stolen land, right? And there's Mileku, evidence of a big Mileku village here, so I forgot to acknowledge them, which is bad. I should have done that at the beginning. That's a great question, because so like when you go to Monteverde, you're gonna find a community that's right on the other side of the lake, and my experience, and I don't know Monteverde that well, my experience of that community is absolutely different from this Tico community. You know, just right on two sides of the lake. If I put on a Spanish language workshop for free here on organic farming for the locals, there's a real chance not one person would take the class. If I did that in Monteverde, it'd probably be packed. There's economic reasons for that, there's social reasons for that, but this isn't an ag area. That is, right? So just because it's a small country and it's inside, even within Guanacaste, that doesn't mean different communities. So like, this is exactly back to what I'm saying, analysis and problem solving. If you don't understand the ground or the people or the economics or the company, you're just guessing, you know? You gotta do your homework, I guess is what I'm saying. Be really thoroughly analytical, ask a lot of questions. So here, we're surrounded by protected areas. So we have Tenorio, every volcano is pretty much a protected area. So Tenorio Volcanic Park, I think it's a park, is not far, right? Then there's Arenal volcano that you just drove by. There are people who want to make a corridor to connect them, right? So connectivity is really important. That's one thing I do know. I had a great professor on this subject, Dale Thornburg at Humboldt, sorry. And he, you know, even small corridors protecting different preserves can make a huge difference. You worked on that big corridor, right? So connectivity, there's a certain size of protected area where it gets down to a certain, it's just too small to really be viable, right? Depends on what's there to be preserved. But connectivity is important, and so I'm not an expert in this area, but I would say one thing is that a park, California example, a state park has one set of rules. A state beach has a different set of rules. A national park, different. A national historic monument, different. And, right, there's all those different categories, right? And you kind of have to do some investigation into what's the policies, what is legal. Because often you find people who are just flagrantly breaking their own rules. And you can say to them, okay, no. Right? But, yeah, overall, though, Costa Rica has been pretty dang successful. It's not as green a country as it claims to be. The #1 in the world in agrochemical application per hectare. Mainly that's export crops that's the pineapple. When you go home and eat pineapple, you're probably eating a Costa Rican pineapple. Everybody here is from the U.S.?
Mhm.
When you go home, you're probably eating a Costa Rican pineapple, and you probably should put it back. Seriously. I mean, they spray that with everything. It's bad. Pineapples, coffee, sugar, not so much sugar though, bananas, coffee, cotton. They still grow some cotton here.
So would you say it's better to get a canned pineapple and a fresh pineapple?
Depends on where the pineapple's from. It's best to grow your own pineapple. Seriously, you know, you need to know where your food's coming from. But somebody talked about health, and I think that's one of the best ways to get people interested. Instead of telling another story about climate change that's too big and scary, is talk about how it affects somebody's child's health, right? And and by the way, every environmental topic is a gender topic. Because who gets affected most globally by any environmental degradation? Women. Women and girls. #1, you probably get paid 70 cents or 50 cents on the dollar compared to what the man next to you is going to get paid, right? So you have fewer resources to deal with the health issues or the bad food or whatever ecological catastrophe is in your face. Also, mammalian biology says that your reproductive tissues tend to bioaccumulate, bioconcentrate, whatever's toxic in the environment, right? So the young men in this room, you know, one of the most important things you can do if you care about this is stand up for your sisters, right? Because they're paying the tab for us. They are differentially attacked by any toxin in the environment. It's much more likely to affect your sister or your mother or your aunt than you. And then they're going to pass it to their kids as well. So I think it's an important challenge for young men to stand up to that.